No. Good morning, Northwest Indiana. My name's Don Babcock, and on behalf of our brand new Chancellor, Chris Holford, I want to welcome all of you to our Westville campus for the Purdue Northwest. And also, I should acknowledge our Vice Chancellor of Administration, Steve Turner's here, to show our support from our top-level management. So thank you all for coming. My job is to be a little bit of the MC this morning, so would love to. We've got a little short program, and then we're going to get right into our keynote speaker. We're so excited to have Kevin here, and I know he's part of the big draw for today to help us celebrate a very important holiday that really needs even a higher level of recognition locally and nationally. And what we wanted to do at Purdue Northwest is to have a greater level of engagement between the community and the university and leaders, and to build a better understanding among all of us so we can really create a better community and a better life for all of us. So my first duty this morning, though, is to introduce our cover girl, if you will, our brand new mayor in Michigan City, Mayor Angie Nelson Deitch, for a couple of words.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Martin Luther King celebration here at PNW, where this holds a special place in my heart. My mother graduated from this campus at 60 years old after all of her kids finished school, and there's 7 of us. So I watched her grow on this campus, and it was very important that she really instilled a lot of things that Dr. Martin Luther King did for the country. She did that for me and my siblings. So I just wanted to acknowledge her and honor her while she's at home this morning. So bear with me. I would like to say welcome. I love to see the high school students here this morning, here from Michigan City. And it's an honor to be here. So I'm the Kevin Powell generation, right? So when 7 strangers collide in a house together with the real world. And at that time, I left Michigan City, and I was on the campus of Florida A&M University, a historically black college at the time. And it was a different time for me coming from Michigan City, where we're so diverse. And then being on a historically black campus, I thought, oh wow, this is going to be interesting. It was more diverse on a historically black campus than it was at home. Because again, when you're strangers, you come from different walks of life, different backgrounds, things happen. And the way I see that is it's a collaboration. You get innovation when you have people who have differences. So I thank you for being here today, because it's one of those things that people don't understand, and some of you young people, go back and look at the real world. It was drama, but they didn't have social media, they didn't have the technology, and things happened, and good things came from that, and dialogue. And a lot of times we hide behind some of the technology and don't have true dialogue. So that's why we're here today. So welcome to our region. I appreciate you all being here this morning.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and you can tell we can expect great things for not only Michigan City, but LaPorte County and the entire region. She's very active at many levels, and she was I had the honor of working with her at NIPSCO for many years, and she did a great job there as our public affairs manager. So now I would love to introduce, speaking of NIPSCO, we have a number of great sponsors for today. But first off, and our primary dream level sponsor is NIPSCO. So if I could have Denise Conlon and newly hired Katie Eaton up to the podium to make a couple comments relative to NIPSCO's support of the event.
Wow, thanks, Don. And thanks, Mayor Nelson Deitch, for your words. And I'm a brand new citizen of Michigan City. Moved here not only to be closer to family, but love the vibe and the things that are happening and the forward-moving society we have going on in Michigan City. So I am now living here, so I love it. So thanks for that. Secondly, Don, thank you for inviting NIPSCO to be the Dream Level sponsor for the second year in a row. As you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion, culture, moving that needle is very important at NIPSCO, but it's important to me. Being a person of you would call white privilege growing up, learning about different cultures, different things throughout my career has been extremely, extremely important. So I'm really honored to be here representing NIPSCO, but also representing things that are very important to me. And at NIPSCO, we are really, really focused on safety. And we use the words, if you see something, say something. But my favorite civil rights activist, John Lewis, always said, one of his quotes that I really like, if you see something that is not right, not fair or just, you have a moral obligation to say something. And I believe in that. So thank you for having us. But before I leave the stage, just wanted to introduce my replacement, our newly hired Public Affairs and Economic Development Manager, Katie Eaton. After nearly 24 years with NIPSCO, I will be bridging my time to retirement in the next couple of months. So Katie has joined us, and so new, Monday was her first day. So say hi to everybody, Katie.
Thank you so much. I'm not going to say very much, but I'm really honored to be here. PNW is an alma mater of mine, so I'm happy to always be present here at PNW, especially at the Westville campus. I did my undergraduate work here, and I'm really thrilled to be part of the NIPSCO team. And I know a lot of the faces in the audience, but I'm looking forward to meeting many new people as well and joining in new partnerships. So thank you so much, and enjoy this wonderful event.
Well, that was a great dynamic duo, and I think they did say something, so thank you. Next, I would like to also acknowledge our other sponsors of the event. So we have Horizon Bank, and I see Steve Kring and his team are here from Horizon Bank. Shive Hattery, Architectural Engineering are not here. Urban League of Northwest Indiana, as well as Judy Jacoby and the Sinai Temple. So, that previous PNW leader also. So, thank you very much, because we can't put this on without that community support. And the other nice thing about having the community support, it shows your commitment to the community as well as to the university, and it's very much appreciated. I want to thank you all for that. But we also have another sponsor who's going to get up and say a couple words from Senator Todd Young's office. We have Jose Diaz here, so please give a warm welcome to Jose Diaz.
Good morning. Esteemed guests, PNW community, my name is Jose Diaz and I serve as the Northwest Regional Director in the office of U.S. Senator Todd Young. You know, today we stand together to commemorate the extraordinary life and enduring legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. His tireless pursuit of justice and equality paved the way for progress, challenging our nation to confront prejudice and instead embrace unity and love. As we gather in the spirit of community today, let us renew our commitment to fostering understanding and togetherness as we work to dismantle the barriers that divide us and separate us. Dr. King's vision remains a guiding light, urging us to be catalysts for positive change in our communities. Together, let us honor his legacy by advancing the cause of equality and justice for all. Moreover, I want to take a quick moment to highlight the work of the late Congresswoman Katie Hall, who served as the representative of Northwest Indiana here many, many decades ago, here in the 1st District. She worked so hard and passionately to enshrine Dr. King's contribution to the nation by introducing a bill in the 98th Congress, H.R. 3706, a bill that would designate the 3rd Monday of January as a national holiday in honor of the late Dr. King. by working with her congressional colleagues and President Ronald Reagan at the time, the bill was eventually signed into law on November 2nd, 1983, in this 98th Congress. And as a result, future generations of Americans now will have the opportunity to learn and be reminded of Dr. King's unwavering commitment to justice, equality, and nonviolence. And with that, we're forever grateful. I would like to conclude by saying we are certainly proud to sponsor this event, and we look forward to supporting, from our side, our community as we work to safeguard and remind others of the great work that Dr. King has done for our nation. Thank you for allowing me to join in this meaningful celebration of the life and legacy of Dr. King.
As I reflect on the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I think As I reflect on the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I think about how he inspired change, helped lead the civil rights movement, and moved our country toward compassion and justice. His legacy reminds us that we can positively affect people's lives and make a lasting impact in our communities. Dr. King demonstrated the power of love, respect, dignity, and hope. During the challenging circumstances of the civil rights movement, Dr. King implored others to be custodians of hope. Those three words, custodians of hope, continue to have profound meaning even today. Like Dr. King, we must always take a stand against injustice and never give up hope that the goodness in our fellow citizens can prevail. One of my favorite books on Dr. King's legacy, The King Years by Taylor Branch, describes the civil rights movement as a bracing reminder that citizens and leaders can work miracles together despite every hardship against great odds. Today and every day, let's honor Dr. King's legacy by coming together as Hoosiers and continuing to advocate for a fair playing field for everyone. By uniting our voices, we can work miracles together, and we can be custodians of hope. Thank you.
Well, that was great coming from our U.S. Senator. Now, on with the show. So I'd like to introduce our brand new Director of Student Success and Urban Engagement, Darian Thompson, and she is the master driver leader of this event today, and we're glad to have her on the team now, and expect many great things to come, and she's going to introduce our keynote. So Darian, please come up.
Thank you so much, Don. Hi, everyone. My name is Darian Thompson. Like Don said, Director of Student Success and Urban Engagement. And I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker for this morning. So, as you guys may know, you read the bio a little bit, but Kevin Powell is a 2024 Grammy-nominated poet and is one of the most celebrated political, cultural, and just the literary hip-hop voices of America. And I know you guys have all seen that, but the Kevin Powell that I've had the pleasure of just getting to know over break, just such an amazing individual, that his love for the people at the end of the day really just goes to show you just how it goes along with Dr. King's legacy. It's just, he loves people. Did anyone have the chance to be on the Hammond campus yesterday to hear his presentation. So you guys know we're going to be in for a treat this morning. I'm already I have such a burst of energy from what he was able just to say the other day. But just from my time being able just to connect with him, it feels like I've known him for so many years. Just how he's just being able just to connect with so many people in the community, going over and saying hi to everyone that's in the room. And I just had the pleasure just being able to call Kevin, you know, my friend, someone who's supporting me and a mentor at the end of the day. He also is an author of 16 books. That's a lot of books. But I also have the pleasure of having this book right here, Kevin Powell, the Kevin Powell Reader. And after his presentation, you know, I'm definitely going to end up purchasing this book because just what he has to say, it's just so knowledgeable, what wisdom he brings. But we will also have QR codes in both of our breakout sessions. If you are interested in what Kevin had to say and just moved by his presentation. And it's also offering 50% off as well. So definitely get this QR code. But like I said, Kevin, I don't have to say too much because we already know you're going to bring the house down. If we can just give a warm welcome, warm round of applause as Kevin comes to the stage. Let's go ahead and give a round of applause.
Thank you so much. 1, 2. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Ladies in the back. Okay. How are you? How are y'all doing? This is what happens when you don't put it on before the program. I apologize. I know better. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I want to thank God for this opportunity. Wow. I'm still thinking about yesterday. It was a beautiful program. I'm just glad to be back in this part of Indiana. It's been a few years. I'm a Christian, but I'm never so religiously arrogant. Assume everyone's Christian. If you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, some other faith or spiritual practice, even if you're atheist or agnostic, you have that right as well. As I said yesterday, I just hope that we can all agree that we're part of the human family. Can we agree to that? No matter how we identify ourselves, whatever our identity or identities are. Mr. Rainey, Maceo Rainey, I want to thank you for using the word belonging. You know, we belong together, and, you know, we have so much to talk about today. I'm not going to give a long speech. I don't believe in long speeches. I used to, but I don't anymore. I believe that, like Shakespeare said, brevity is the soul of wit. Keep it mad short, in other words. And most importantly, let's open up the floor to conversation. Are y'all good with that? Thank y'all. And I just want to, I can actually just stand here, Mr. Anthony. I'll be good with this. I'll just stand here. Is that all right? And I assume I should not walk away from the mic too much because y'all are filming this? Is that right? Okay. All right. Even though I want to jump off the stage? Okay. I want to give a round of applause to Ms. Darian Thompson and Dr. Giselle Casanova, the two women who I've been communicating with who helped to bring me back here. Dr. Casanova reminded me I was here 24 years ago when I had hair like Michael Jordan had hair back in the day, Mr. Rainey. Lots of hair. So it's great to be back in this wonderful state. I'm a big sports fan, so when I saw the senator say Hoosiers, I always get excited because I think about sports a lot and the rich history of what y'all have created here in the state of Indiana. I certainly want to thank all the organizations, all the sponsors. Thank y'all so much for putting this together and for having me here. Madam Mayor, can we give the mayor a round of applause, please? She said, I asked, second woman mayor in Michigan City and first black woman mayor in Michigan City. So making history in different ways. And I'll say this, as I say everywhere I go, I was raised by a single mother. And she was the first leader and teacher I ever met. And, you know, as we were talking privately for a second, and I'll talk about this more, but please let's continue to support women leadership, women leadership, women leadership, women leadership. Women are our equals, are our equals, are our equals, are our equals, including my wife, who's my equal, who's schools here. You know, my partner, my wife, Evangeline, who's from California, but her family has roots in Chicago, so she knows this area well as well. But when we talk about belonging, let's make sure we acknowledge not just racism, but also sexism. I don't know about y'all, but one of the most interesting movies I saw in 2023 is called this little thing called Barbie. And they kept talking about the patriarchy, and people were right. The film is right about that. You know, we got to keep fighting all these different things. I want to certainly acknowledge all the students here, and I want to shout out the high school students. So I went back there and made sure I gave them all high fives. You know, let's please, in fact, let's do this. We're all family here, right? My wife said, go back to the mic. We're all family here, right? In the tradition of the black church that I come out of, some of y'all know what I'm talking about. I grew up in the Holy Roller segment of the black church. You know, where we were running laps around the church and passing out, and y'all know what I'm talking about. But can you all, if you're able, we have people who have different abilities here, or just go to someone that you don't know and introduce yourself real quick. Can y'all do that real quick? No matter what your ability is, just go to someone and just say hello to them, please.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll do that. So I'll keep it there. When I'm ready to take it off, I'll take it off.
Okay.
Thank you, dude.
Yeah, go ahead and.
Thank you.
These are just way sensitive here. These ones, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Where's the mayor at? Madam Mayor. All right. I have figured out the mic situation. I'm good. Madam Mayor, I love this photo. Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor's texting. I love this photo. I love the Chucks. You got the Converses on. Very cool. How do y'all feel? Y'all good? I mean, I just think it's important for us to not just come to celebrate Dr. King, but one of the things that was talked about, thank you for the elected officials who spoke, or the representation also, just bringing people together. I mean, we have some very serious things happening in our country and in this world right now. I want to get into y'all who were here yesterday. You know, we'll hear some of the same things, which is all right, you know, but there's a lot on my heart and mind. And I'm also thinking about what I heard yesterday from the folks at the program and what I watched on the news between last night and this morning and what I read. I just, you know, one, Dr. King. I don't want us to leave this space today without making a commitment to actually, you know what, I need to read more about Dr. King. I need to listen to the speeches for real. I need to actually watch some documentaries. Let me start with resources. One, Eyes on the Prize. Eyes on the Prize is probably the most important documentary on the history of the civil rights movement ever created. It's about 14 parts, and it's free on YouTube. It's just sitting there. You can go pay for it on Amazon if you'd like to, but the parts are free on YouTube, all 14 parts. The civil rights movement, the heart of it was 1955 to 1968. 13 years, 13 years, 13 years. Just think about that for a second, 13 years. You know, to transform our country into what it is now. We take for granted that we're sitting here civilly, people of different identities. Am I right, y'all? We're sitting here respectfully with each other, but there was a time when people were being segregated. One of my next book, my 17th book, is actually a biography of Tupac Shakur, who I knew very well when he was alive. I was actually in Vegas when Tupac died. I've done a lot of research on Tupac, his family. His mother was from Lumberton, North Carolina. When I went to Lumberton, North Carolina, you know what they told me about the era she grew up in when she was born in 1948? When they went to the movie, if you went to the movie theater, there was a section for black people, There was a section for white people, and there was a section for the indigenous or Native American people who lived in that community. So you had 3 different sections. So here we are in 2024 honoring a black woman mayor in Michigan City and sitting here civilly. So we can say that we can see examples of progress in this country for sure. I'm an example of it. I'm a first generation college student, which is why when I met Mr. Rainey, he said TRIO. Remember, I lit up. I didn't come through TRIO, but I came through a program in New Jersey where I was born and raised. I've lived in New York City most of my life, but I was born and raised in New Jersey, Jersey City. And my mother had migrated from South Carolina, where she grew up in a segregated community. She lived in a 2-room shack. It was 4 girls and a boy and a mother and father in a 2-room shack. That's where my mother's from. Sometimes, as we were eating breakfast early this morning, my mother said sometimes they had to have a bowl of syrup and they would just pass that around. That was the meal. Y'all with me out there? That level of poverty, which is one reason why I bring it back to Dr. King. He talked about poverty at the end of his life so much. He didn't say poor black people or poor white people. He said, I want to have a poor people's campaign. One of the things I said to folks yesterday, let's stop using terms like ghetto and hood and trailer trash and poor white trash and illegal aliens, which I heard a lot last night at the debate, the presidential debate, people being called illegal aliens. No, people are not illegal aliens. People are not aliens. People are human beings. And some of us come from Ireland. Some of us are Irish. Some of us are Jewish. Some of us are Italian, some of us are Muslim, some of us happen to be African American or Mexican or Chinese or Vietnamese. We are human beings. We are human beings. We are human beings. We are not illegal aliens. We are not white trash. We are not rednecks. We're not ghetto. We are not hood. Are y'all with me out there? We're not mutts or any of these terms, we are human beings. We are human beings. My wife and I went on an Uber ride last night. The driver didn't know who we were, and it's fine, but he started saying some of the things that he believed. And I don't care what your religious belief is. I'm going to say it again. I'm a Christian, but the kind of Christianity that I practice is the same kind of Christianity Dr. King practiced, which is I love all people. I don't care who you are. You could be straight. You could be gay. You could be transgendered. You could be anything. You could be non-gender conforming. I love you. You could be homeless. I love you. You could be a veteran who's homeless. I love you. Are y'all with me out there? You could be a migrant on the buses that are being pushed out of Texas to places like New York City where I live. I love you and I feel what you're going through. Indiana, y'all got an incredible history. I just referenced sports earlier, but the most important thing that ever happened for me about Indiana is the day Dr. King was killed, April 4th, 1968. Someone, sister, you used the term white privilege when you spoke. One of the most privileged families in American history is the Kennedy family. Kennedy family. Bobby Kennedy, Irish-American brother, white brother, whose brother, John Kennedy, as y'all know, we just acknowledged 60 years ago, this past November, he was assassinated on national TV. Bobby Kennedy was his attorney general. Bobby Kennedy was the little brother. Bobby Kennedy wasn't really liked by a lot of people. In fact, Bobby Kennedy didn't understand his white privilege. In fact, he sometimes was trying not to support the civil rights movement. That's just a fact. He struggled. But trauma hit all of us in November '63 when his brother John was assassinated. Can you imagine? How many of y'all were alive when John Kennedy was killed? Remember where you were when John Kennedy was killed? Just like I remember where I was when 9/11 happened. It hurts your soul. Bobby was devastated by what happened to his brother. But it also changed him, right? Because when he came back out to public view, it was at the Democratic National Convention in 1964 in Atlantic City, the same Democratic Convention where a woman named Fannie Lou Hamer, a black woman who had been a sharecropper, spoke about why she should have the right to vote. Bobby Kennedy, the last 4 years of his life, started speaking out on behalf of poor whites, poor blacks, poor Latinx folks, poor Asian folks, poor indigenous folks. Bobby Kennedy became a different person, right? He's the person who gave us that great quote. You may not be able to do everything, but if you can just, each of us, sponsors of this program, Dr. Casanova, Miss Brittany, Mr. Rainey, Miss Thompson, Darian, if you can just be a tiny ripple of hope, there's that word again, right? Bobby Kennedy is in Indianapolis, Indiana on April 4th, '68. He has to announce to a majority black crowd, Dr. King was just killed. A couple years ago, I had the honor of being in Indianapolis and being in the very spot where he gave that speech. Y'all should look it up. This is a resource. It's on YouTube for free. That speech is only 5 to 6 minutes long, but it's one of the most incredible speeches ever given. And the great irony of it is the day after Dr. King gave what I think is his most important speech, the mountaintop speech in Memphis, Tennessee. Y'all know the speech, right? Bobby Kennedy speaks with such conviction and passion, and he says what you said to me, Mr. Rainey, people need to feel like they belong. And it's the only time that Bobby Kennedy ever publicly talked about, he said, Dr. King was killed by a white man just like my brother was killed by a white man. But we got to figure out a way from this violence. This love. We got to get to love. Here we are in 2024, y'all. I look at the students out here. We got to stop saying that young people are our future, they're tomorrow. No, they're here right now. I don't care if they're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. We have a responsibility not to just dump this world on them. Here y'all go. You know? No, we have to be honest adults and say, hey, here's what I've been through. Here's some things you may go through, and I'm here to help you. Can we work together across generations? Does that make sense, y'all? That speech Bobby Kennedy gave in your state of Indiana, Indianapolis was one of the few cities because of how he presented those words, not as a white man, but as a human being. Indianapolis did not explode in rebellion that night. There was no violence in Indianapolis the way it was around the country because people were hurt. How can you kill someone like Dr. King? Someone who's talking about love and peace and kindness. How could you kill someone like that? How can you kill someone like Bobby Kennedy 2 months later? Right? And since that year of 68, y'all who were alive then, wasn't it a crazy year in 1968? It was a deep year, right? We've had over 1 million people in our country die just like they did by guns. I'm not going to get into some philosophical debate about guns with y'all. I'm not here for that. But I will say this, back to Dr. King. He said at the end of his life, we need a radical revolution of values. A radical revolution of values. These are not my words, these are Dr. King's words. Because so many of us are comfortable with violence. To the point where, as I said yesterday, everywhere I go to speak now, I look for the exit signs. Is there security? I didn't always think like that. I've been on the lecture circuit since I had hair and on the Real World on MTV. A lot of hair. But over time, especially starting in the late 1990s, with these mass shootings, you start thinking like, wow, have we become this comfortable with violence? Synagogues, churches, masjids, nightclubs, colleges, high schools, grade schools, concerts, shopping centers, should I go on? My cousin was the pastor of the church in Charleston, South Carolina, Reverend Pinckney, where the black folks invited in the white brother, Dylan Roof, to pray with them, and then he murdered them. I feel the same pain for the folks who died in that black church as I feel for the Jewish folks who died in the synagogue in Pittsburgh. Y'all would be out there. And so when I think about Dr. King, yeah, there's been tremendous progress. I'm a first-generation college student. I got 16 books. I've been blessed to travel this country and the world. I have my own businesses. I'm in a beautiful marriage. I'm happy. But I don't just think as an individual. You know? As I go coast to coast, I look at all the homelessness. I look at all the folks suffering. You know, Southside Chicago is East New York, Brooklyn. It's the 9th Ward of New Orleans. It's East Oakland. It's South Los Angeles. It's the 5th Ward of Houston. It's Southwest Atlanta. You know what I'm saying? It's Southeast DC. It's East Baltimore. The hood is the hood is the hood. And my question becomes, why is every hood looking the same? Oh, here we are celebrating Dr. King, but I can go to any hood in America. You got fast food restaurants, you got soul food restaurants, you got mad churches, you got mad funeral homes, you got check cashing places, you got renter centers, you got these quick loan schemes that they sell to people in poor communities. Why do all the communities look the same? Why are my people suffering everywhere I go? But we said we have made progress, right? And so, yeah, Kevin Powell might be okay, but Kevin Powell ain't divorced from the people, from the people, from the people. You know, that's what I think about. If anyone is suffering, then I'm suffering. Does that make sense, y'all? If anyone is suffering, then I'm suffering. If anyone is hurting, then I'm hurting. This ain't about my career, my resume, my CV, my books, I don't care about prestige. I don't care about status. I come from the Dr. King School. He was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Who was he? He's born January 15th, 1929, Atlanta, Georgia. He was born into the black middle class. He could have been like, I'm good. I got mine. No. Even when he was a little boy, y'all, look it up. Don't take my word for it. There's a book called Testament of Hope. Testament of Hope is the collected writings and speeches and sermons of Dr. King. You can get it anywhere. Testament of Hope. We need to know who this person was. Even when he's a little boy, he went on a trip through Georgia. And he noticed that the black folks had to sit at the back of the bus. And he was like, why is that? Because if we're serious about being agents for change, you don't have to be a speaker. You don't have to be a professor. You don't have to be a writer of books like I am. You don't have to be an elected official. But in your own way, if you see injustice, do you ever say anything? Do you know what I mean? Do you ever say anything? He said something. And this same little boy who said, why do we have to sit at the back of the bus? He was a critical thinker. By 15, he's a student at Morehouse College. By 26, he's got his PhD. In between 15 and 26, this man went to college in the South, undergrad, but he also went to graduate school in Boston and Philadelphia. And somewhere in there, this black man, this African-American person, Baptist, Christian, discovered someone from India named Gandhi. And he learned about how Gandhi was fighting British colonialism with this technique called nonviolence. And he took it and remixed it, as I said yesterday, into a philosophy that became the foundation for the civil rights movement. Right? This is Dr. King. He gets to Alabama. He just wants to have a church. He's met Coretta Scott King, an amazing human being in her own right. Please look her up. Please look her up. And please, let's stop putting Dr. King on a pedestal and acting like it was just one person who made the civil rights movement happen. We cannot talk about the civil rights movement without talking about the constant contributions of black women, just like there'd be no Joe Biden in the White House without black women. There'd be no civil rights movement without black women, period. Because the same patriarchy that the Barbie movie talked about is the same patriarchy that'll show you images of Dr. King and Malcolm X, but they leave out Ella Baker and Fannie Lou Hamer. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Right? Dr. King just wanted to be a preacher. From 1955 to 1968, the heart of the civil rights movement, this man's only 26 years old. If you drop Dr. King into 2024, he'd be a hip-hop head, straight up. You know what I'm saying? He'd be listening to probably Sexy Red and other folks on the radio and be like, what up, yo? You know what I'm saying? I'm just being real. Sexy Red is deep, right? That's a whole nother conversation. But 1955, a black boy, Chicago, make some noise if you're from Chicago out there. A black boy who was born about the same year as my mama. My mama just turned 80 years old last year. Yeah. A black boy named Emmett Till did what a lot of us who have family roots in the South do. We go down south. How many of y'all have taken the Greyhound bus like I have? How many of y'all have driven down south like I have? Y'all know what I'm talking about. Emmett Till's mother knows that her son has a lot of energy. If y'all haven't seen the film Till, please see the film Till. And I think the actress who played Mamie Till, Emmett Till's mother, was robbed of an Oscar nomination. It's an incredible performance. Emmett Till allegedly whistles at a white woman and tells white men, white supremacist type white men, he's taken, I would say kidnapped, from his home, where the relatives are, his relative's home. He's savagely beaten. And that wasn't good enough. They shoot him for good measure, and that wasn't good enough. Then they throw him into a river with a fan tied around his neck. When they finally find his body, his whole face is just deformed. When they bring the body back to Chicago, Mamie Till said, I want an open casket. I want the world to see what they did to my son. That was August 1955, December 1955. A woman named Rosa Parks. She wasn't the first black woman to do it, but she was the most prominent black woman over time to do it, refused to give her seat on a bus. That led Dr. King into the leadership of the civil rights movement with the Montgomery bus boycott. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? And we know from there, Dr. King went on with his life. Testament of Hope is the book. We need to know who he was. You know, as I said yesterday, we had some great conversations during the program, after the program, workshops, etc. Let's stop saying Dr. King's legacy if we actually don't know what the legacy was. You know, no disrespect to y'all, but my mama, who has an 8th grade education, we didn't have any books in the house when I was growing up, except for a Bible. We didn't have any money. Books was a luxury. You want to talk about privilege? Privilege means you can afford to buy a book. But something was in my mother, because she's born in the 1940s. Guess what, y'all? She was born on August 28, 1943. So guess what? On August 28, 1963, the day of the March on Washington, where Dr. King gave his I Have a Dream speech, my mother turned 20 years old. On that day, on a day that I went to the spot where Dr. King gave that famous speech, Lincoln Memorial, y'all know where it was, I called my mother on my cell phone. I was standing literally in a spot. They have a mark. Some of y'all may have been on a trip to that place in D.C. And I said, "Ma, where were you when that happened? Did you know about it?" She said, "We heard about it." Remember, there was no social media back then. There was no cell phones. She said, "We heard folks were going to D.C. to fight for our rights." The mythology is that everyone was a part of the civil rights movement. It was a handful of committed people. It was a handful of committed people. It was engineered by black folks, but there were white folks who were part of the movement. Jewish folks certainly were big parts of the civil rights movement. Look it up. You know, and the civil rights movement wasn't just to benefit black folks, it benefited Latinx folks, indigenous folks, Asian folks, women, disabled folks, the LGBTQ plus community. It benefited anyone who had been marginalized in some way in our society. The civil rights movement was about making America a greater democracy. My mother didn't have a TV or a radio. She did not hear Dr. King's speech. But when you listen to I Have a Dream speech, it's only 18 minutes, y'all. It's 18 minutes. It's a short speech. But in that speech, you know, first, I believe he's making a call for reparations. He's like, America's giving us a blank check that came back marked insufficient funds. Here we are 100 years after Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation in 1863. Here we are in 1963, still asking for freedom. Wow. You know, in that speech, he encourages us not to drink from the cup of bitterness, but he acknowledges, uses the term, actually, police brutality, not once, but twice in the I Have a Dream speech. Read the speech. Listen to the whole speech. Read the entire speech. But he also encourages us to go back to Alabama, go back to Mississippi, go back to places we had been, where we came from, and keep doing the work. You don't get the first black woman mayor of Michigan City without all that work through the years. You don't get that. Against all odds, like Tupac would say. When she told me what she was up against, I was like, look at God, but also look at the work of people who came before us, right? And then at the end of the speech, Dr. King, what people like to quote a lot, they'll say he was colorblind. Even Stevie Wonder, who actually was the massive leader of the movement that made Dr. King's birthday a national holiday. When y'all sing Happy Birthday, the Stevie Wonder version, let's not forget that song was written for Dr. King as a way to push for the national holiday. We need to read. What did I say yesterday, y'all? Hashtag read, study, travel. We can't just make stuff up. Certainly elected officials, without question, and I'm saying this as someone who's run for office twice in New York City, certainly elected officials had to push. But let's not get it twisted. Reagan, the president, was actually part of a movement in the 1980s to erase voting rights all over the country. This isn't about being liberal or conservative, Democrat, Republican. It's about acknowledging stuff that is actually factual. How do I know? Because I was a college student in the 1980s, and students like me had to go back to places like Alabama to help re-register people who were getting knocked off the voting rolls. How do I know this? Because I remember folks saying, we don't want to acknowledge Dr. King. What did he do for this country? How do I know this? Because even when the law was passed nationally, there were states that were resistant to celebrating Dr. King's birthday. It may be common now, but back then, Dr. Casanova knows what I'm talking about. People are like, nah, we ain't celebrating that holiday. So the reason why you had lawmakers, including from your great state of Indiana, who said, I'm going to fight for this law, is because we, the people, made it happen. Just like we, the people, made the civil rights movement happen. Dr. King, yeah, he was a scholar, but he was an imperfect human being, y'all, you know. This is someone who chain smoked at times, the stress levels. He was accused of adulterous affairs. This is not to denigrate him. He was a very human being. Stop acting like people are perfect and didn't do anything. You know what I mean? But he also had integrity and love. Remember, 63, the March on Washington, he's at this peak. 64, he gets the Nobel Peace Prize. Think about this for a second. He was a father and husband of 4 children at this point. 1964, and he got the Nobel Peace Prize. He got this prize money, which was worth a lot for him and his family. Dr. King, if you look at photos of him, how many suits did he really have? How many pairs of shoes did he really have? Why did Dr. King and Malcolm X both die broke? Not saying you should die broke, but I'm saying when I look at people today, and I'm saying this as a Christian who belongs to First Corinthian Baptist Church, Harlem, New York, Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard, 116th Street. The reason why I go to the church that I go to is because my pastor, the pastor that I support, is not a criminal, a crook, a hustler, a pimp, someone who has a mega church that's milking people for money, ATMs all over the place, private plane, private helicopter, private everything, VIP section for folks who can donate more money. What does any of that have to do with Jesus Christ? Dr. King, in the spirit of Jesus Christ, said, well, I got this money from the Nobel Peace Prize, but I don't want to appear to be pimping the civil rights movement. So I'm going to donate every dime back to the civil rights movement. So what I'm saying to y'all, he was, even with his imperfections, he was presenting a model of leadership. The people, God and the people first, not me first. Does that make sense, y'all? You know, we had a lot of conversations yesterday about leadership. You know, Cody and folks know what I'm talking about. You know, students who are here from yesterday. It's got to be what Dr. King said. If you're going to be a leader, these are his words. You have to be willing to practice a dangerous kind of selflessness. A dangerous kind of selflessness. When I watch some of these folks who run for president every 4 years, I'm like, this has nothing to do with the American people. Most of these folks just want to be president of the United States. They just want the power. They just want the influence. They just want the control. Do you actually care about American people? Do you care about human beings? You know, when my wife and I were in the Uber yesterday, we may not agree with the politics of the Uber driver 100%, the things he was saying, but the thing that I thought about is when he described the work that he does with his hands, how proud he is to belong to a union, how hard it's been for people like him who live in places like Indiana and Illinois and Michigan and Ohio as the factories have disappeared. Do we care about each other? 1964 Civil Rights Bill gets passed. 1965 Voting Rights Act gets passed. Why is this important? Especially for our students. How many of y'all are going to be turning 18 this year or the next couple years? Right? They have to, in the 21st century, in the 2020s, along with us, the generations ahead of them, still fight to protect voting rights. Donald Trump just announced in one of his speeches recently to his followers, we need you to show up on Election Day, November of this year, when we're all voting for President of the United States. And if you feel like something is wrong, you need to challenge people who look like they're trying to steal the vote. You know what that sounds like to me? Because I hashtag read, study, travel. It sounds like folks who denied my ancestors in South Carolina at the end of the Civil War into the 1860s and 1870s and beyond, we're going to be at the voting polls and telling you that you can or cannot vote. We're just going to decide it on the spot. You know what that sounds like, folks who identify as women in this country and in this room? Because you're a woman, you're not going to be able to vote at all. Y'all with me out there? You know what that sounds like? Yeah, they're about to turn 18, but there was a time when you could go fight in a war at 18, but you couldn't vote at 18. And so, again, y'all can get stuck in that box. Liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, red state, blue state. My simple question is, in the spirit of Dr. King, what kind of human being do you want to be? Do you care about human beings? Do you believe in love? Or do you believe in hate? Do you have courage? Or are you down with fear? Do you want to be a bridge builder? Belonging, Mr. Rainey, as you said so powerfully? Letting folks know you belong here. In Westfield, in Michigan City, in Northwest Indiana, in the state of Indiana, in the Midwest, in America? Or do you want to be a bridge destroyer? Telling folks and I've been to places like Latin America, for example. Yo hablo español, el español muy importante. Do you want to call people gangsters and criminals, or do you understand that people are saying, hey, Black Americans and Irish folks and Italian folks and Jewish folks, y'all came to this country looking for a better life, another opportunity. Why can't I do the same thing? Y'all with me out there? You know? How dare you shut the door on me when we know there's a time when Irish folks were called all kinds of names. Italian American folks were called all kinds of names. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But if we don't hashtag read, study, travel, if we have selective amnesia about basic American history, we're going to act like this is all some new phenomenon. Dr. King gets that Nobel Peace Prize, gives the money back, Civil Rights Bill 64, Voting Rights Act 65, but in 65, something profound also happened in LA, Los Angeles, Southern California, where my wife is from. Police brutality case, black folks responding to rebellion. No different than George Floyd. Same stuff, no different than Breonna Taylor, same stuff. Sandra Bland, same stuff. This is 1960s. I'm not making this stuff up. You can read it. You know, the thing I got to say to y'all that I think is important, you have an effort in this country. Doc Casanova, everyone who is a scholar here knows what I'm talking about. There are people who are attempting to tell us what we can and cannot talk about, what we can and cannot teach. Have I said any curse words up here whatsoever? Have I dissed anybody because of who they are and their identity? Did I not say at the beginning of this program that I love all people, which means I absolutely love everyone in this room? However, as a family, an American family, a human family, we sometimes have to have some uncomfortable, difficult conversations. And racism is one of those difficult, uncomfortable conversations. Thank you for even having the courage to use the term white privilege. You didn't have to do that. Just like I don't have to do, as a man, a heterosexual man, a cisgender man, but I'm clear, I have male privilege. I benefit from sexism. Yeah, I do. Dr. King goes to LA. You can watch it on YouTube. He's trying to understand, why did these folks, these black folks, rebel, what some folks call a riot? That's where his famous quote came from. A riot is the language of the unheard. A riot is the language of the unheard. You can watch it on YouTube. They say, get out here, Dr. King, we don't hear this stuff. But because he was a humble leader, part of being a leader is humility. Part of being a leader is humility. Part of being a leader is humility, which means you have to be able to listen and admit what you don't know. Dr. King was like, well, I don't understand this environment. I'm from the South. What does he do in '66? He moves to Chicago. West side of Chicago. Look it up. Him and Coretta Scott King end up in a tenement building with rats and roaches. They said, we don't want to live, we don't want any special treatment. We want to live how the people live. He was demonstrating, hey, and he said it, y'all, and I love Chicago, no diss to Chicago, but he said some of the racism I experienced when I was protesting, organizing in Chicago is worse than what I experienced in Alabama. And as a New York City person, I can tell you some of the things I've experienced in New York City are worse in South Carolina, where my family's originally from. The lie is that the cities are better than down south. That down south is just the only place that's racist in the country. No, actually, the whole country was not only rooted in racism, but every kind of ism you can think of. And if it wasn't for the civil rights movement, the work of all these folks, including Dr. King, we'd not be sitting here right now having these conversations. That's just a fact. 66, he does that. 67, he comes out against the Vietnam War. He said we were sending poor blacks and poor whites to fight poor yellow, Asian people. He used the term yellow, but Asian people in Vietnam. And he's beginning to talk about economics, y'all. Economics. The same economics the Uber driver was talking to my wife and I about last night. Why is this all important? Because we still have people struggling in 2024 with basic finances. You know, one of the things that the driver said to us last night, how come we don't make anything in America anymore? How come everything we buy is from overseas? How come we don't support our own people? These are the questions he was asking. Basic questions. You know what I mean? Dr. King, the real Dr. King, lived 5 years after the I Have a Dream speech. Let's not get stuck on the I Have a Dream speech, 1963. Who was he after 1963? How did he evolve? We do a disservice to Dr. King if we reduce him to what we reduced George Washington to, Thomas Jefferson to. Y'all know what I'm talking about. When I was growing up, we heard a little bit about George Washington, a little bit about Thomas Jefferson, a little bit about Abe Lincoln, but you really didn't even know who they were. A little bit about Helen Keller, if you got any women at all, a little bit, you know, that was it. And I'm saying to y'all, as I've been blessed to travel this country, and I'm going to end it here in a second, you know, I've been struck by people in places like Ireland and Wales and Japan, parts of Africa, parts of Europe, who know more about America and American history than many of us in this country. If we really say we're patriotic, if you really love your country, Madam Mayor, you know what I'm talking about, don't you think you should have some working idea of the country? You know, even if it makes you uncomfortable, let's bring it back to gender for a second. I'm going to put race over here for a second. I didn't always think about gender issues. I didn't always think about sexism. I certainly didn't use terms like sexism, patriarchy, misogyny. It were women who challenged me and continue to challenge me, including my wife. Hey, do you realize that women and men do the same work, but women oftentimes make less than the men do? You know, hey, do you realize, as my wife talked about when she worked in corporate America, it's been common practice in corporate America, in academia, everywhere, where men think it's okay to say anything they want to women, to touch women any way they want, to squeeze shoulders, y'all know what I'm talking about, all this sexist, patriarchal, misogynistic behavior. And then if you say something, we're like, what? Right? And so my thing is, what I began to realize, Kevin Powell is not good enough to say you're anti-racism, but if you're a sexist pig. Just like it's not good enough to say, hey, I'm a feminist, if you happen to be a white sister, but you also are a racist. I'm just saying. It's not good enough to say that you love all people, that you are practicing whatever your religion is. My religion is about loving people, but then you are the biggest homophobe and transphobe out there, including the Uber driver we had last night saying all kinds of wild stuff. Oh, yeah. So let's stop saying that we love Dr. King if we don't actually know Dr. King in totality. Testament of Hope is the book. Listen to the Bobby Kennedy speech. Listen to Dr. King's speeches. Let's actually learn about the Civil Rights Movement. Eyes on the Prize is free on social media. You know? And the fact is, this culture, hip-hop, 50 years, we celebrated it last year, hip-hop wouldn't even exist without the Civil Rights Movement. Because the same poor people Dr. King was telling us not to abandon at the end of his life are the same poor people who created hip-hop. Poor African Americans, poor West Indians, and poor Latinx folks in a place called New York City. And there was a similar energy happening when my wife is from California. Black folks, African American folks, Chicano, Mexican Americans created hip hop. Y'all with me out there? Hip hop was created by poor people. Yeah, it was. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry now, but it was created by poor people. The same poor people Dr. King told us not to forget. In conclusion, I think that we just have to be willing to know ourselves. You know, Dr. King asked the question, where do we go from here? The subtitle was community, or is it going to be chaos? January 6th was chaos. Again, I don't care if you're liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, red state, blue state, you got some family members who are certain kinds of supporters. I'm like, what does any of this stuff have to do with Americans and with humanity? Do we care about people? Do we know ourselves, and do you also have the courage to get up and say, let me learn about people who may be different than me, right? I mean, I live in New York City, I love New York City, but it's like, you know, I live in Brooklyn. We got folks who are African American, West Indian, Dominican, Mexican, Guatemalan, Puerto Rican, Chinese, Vietnamese, Jewish, Italian, Irish, Polish. I'm like, I want to learn about all these folks. I want to learn these histories. You know, me and Mr. Rainey were just talking a moment ago about Chicago, how much I love Chicago. My favorite singer ever was from Chicago. His name is Sam Cooke, y'all. But Sam Cooke was also intellectually curious. He was rooted in blackness. You don't get a song like A Change Is Gonna Come, which is considered one of the anthems of the very civil rights movement that Dr. King was the moral leader of. But guess where he got the inspiration for that song from? Because he was intellectually open. There was a Jewish brother, a white brother named Bob Dylan, who wrote a song called Blowing in the Wind. Sam Cooke, a black man, heard this song by this white brother, this Jewish brother, called Blowing in the Wind, which was about the civil rights movement. And he started singing the song, and then it finally gave him the inspiration to write his own song called A Change Is Gonna Come. But if you're closed off, and you gotta ask yourself, how does someone named Bob Dylan, born Robert Zimmerman, a Jewish brother from Minnesota, well, that means that he must have been open to something. Well, guess what? Bob Dylan, right? This white brother, this Jewish brother, one, he was inspired by a black woman singer named Odetta during the 1950s, but he also was inspired by folks called the beat writers like Allen Ginsberg, right? But he also was inspired by a Welsh writer named Dylan Thomas, which is why he renamed himself. Robert Zimmerman became Bob Dylan. Y'all feel where I'm going with this? Know who you are, but have the courage to cross cultural boundaries, in the words of Bell Hooks, right? But then you can't stop there. You got to do something. You got to do something. The mayor's doing it. She's the mayor. It's a thankless job being a servant leader, isn't it? But she's doing it. I'm not saying you got to be the mayor, but thank you. And can we give the mayor a round of applause again? Seriously. But on a simple level, and I think Madam Mayor would agree, y'all got to vote. Stop guilt tripping young people. Well, we died the right to vote. I'm like, vote, but also know what's going on in your community. Be aware of the issues. Be able to articulate things. And stop. You know, one of the things I think about with the Uber driver last night, he was just repeating what he has heard. You feel me? There was no critical thinking, no independent thinking, because he doesn't hashtag read, study, travel. His life is literally back and forth between Indiana and Illinois, just like my life used to be just between New Jersey and New York. Same thing. That's all I knew, Mr. Rainey. That's all I knew. We got to decide, do you want to live your life, a full life, or do you want to live your life in a box? You know, any of y'all who are hip-hop heads out here know what I'm talking about. Tupac Shakur renamed himself Machiavelli. Why did he do that? Because when he was in prison for that year, someone gave him a book by an Italian philosopher named Machiavelli. The book was called The Prince. Tupac, you need to read this book. Tupac's mind was blown by the book. But Tupac was also inspired by Marvin Gaye, Vincent van Gogh, a whole bunch of people. Y'all feel me? Because he hashtag read, study, and traveled. So know who you are. Be willing to learn about other people. Do something in your community. And also, if you're in a leadership position, you have a platform, back to Mr. Rainey's point, if you see all different types of people arriving in the community, help them to belong. Don't other them. Don't act like they're invisible. Don't act like they're a nuisance, right? Back to Mr. Rainey, the TRIO program that you have been a part of, came out of the Civil Rights Movement. When I went to college, I got to college because a white brother who also came from privilege, Tom Kane, he used to be the governor of New Jersey. His family, you can see the name, K-E-A-N, Kane. There's a college even named after that family. They were around in the Revolutionary War period in American history. He was a Republican. I'm not. But he saw what was happening in America in the years of Dr. King, 67, 68. He created a bill. He created a bill that made it possible for African American, Black, Latinx, poor people of all backgrounds, but mostly Black and Latinx young people to be first-generation college students. There's no 16 books from Kevin Powell. There's none of this stuff. Me even standing there is highly unlikely if someone who was completely different than me did not see my humanity, even though he didn't know me. So what can you do? Use your privilege. There's nothing wrong with having privilege. But do you use it to help other people? You know? What do you do if you see someone who's a janitor, a sanitation worker, cleaning up the floors of this building, and you don't speak to them, the security people, the secretaries? If you think you're better than people just because of some title, some degree, you're going in the opposite direction of Dr. King. Let's not forget Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., nationally best-selling author, scholar, moral voice of the Civil Rights Movement, Nobel Peace Prize winner. Where was he when he died? Memphis, Tennessee, working with garbage men. He never thought he was better than anyone else. He said there was dignity in all work. And these men who are sanitation workers, garbage men, deserve to be treated just like you, who might have some privilege, quote unquote. So what does that leave us? Where Dr. King left us. Do we believe in love? Do we believe in love? Do we believe in love? Because if you really believe in love, then why is all this violence happening around the world? If you really believe in love, why is there so much hatred and fear and division? If you really believe in love, why do we talk about each other the way we do? Right? If we believe in love, why is there racism and sexism and classism and homophobia and transphobia and anti-Semitism and Islamophobia and ageism, ableism, all of those different divisions? Why do we hate immigrants the way we do? Do we really believe in love? And I think for me, that's the thing. I used to think that Dr. King was corny talking about love. Now I'm like, I agree with my friend and mentor Eve Ensler, who now goes by V. She, some of y'all know, was the creator of something called the Vagina Monologues years ago. white sister, Jewish sister, powerful human being. You know, V said to me something I'll never forget. If love is really being practiced in the world, then why is the world the way it is? So I think, if anything, say it to yourself, but say it to other people, I love you. But as my wife always says to me, because she's smarter than I am, I'm clear about that. Love is a practice, kindness is a practice. And if you really listen to Dr. King's last speech, the day before he's killed, the mountaintop speech, you can hear and see his exhaustion. He's sweating. But he also says, because he still has hope, I'm here to tell you, we as a people will get to the promised land. But we ain't gonna get to the promised land with hate. It's gotta be love. And love is a practice. Love is a practice. Love is a practice. Thank y'all.
It's not over yet. It's not over yet. Hold up. I was like, you can't leave the stage that quick yet, Kevin. Hold on now. Get your water.
In my East Coast accent, I said water.
Some water. So now we're just going to open. The floor up just for questions. If anyone has for Kevin, Britt and I will be walking around the room. So if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand, and then we'll come right to you. Okay, we got Cody right over here.
You got that all ready?
Y'all have any questions?
You want to read it?
So I want to give the mic to y'all before I give it to everybody.
Okay, drop 30. No,
Oh man,
drop 30.
I wasn't expecting that.
You all have any
Sure. Okay.
Appreciate you.
I was on a study abroad in Spain, and I wrote this on the bus.
I love that you did that study abroad.
Yes, sir. It's very, very eye-opening. This is June 1st. In a land without navigation, I see fear and panic. I try to comprehend this feeling, but I can't understand it. I have a light. It's shining bright in my hand. I try to pass this light on, but the blind follows behind his friend. What should I do? I'm conflicted as such. Should I carry this light on, or should I try to give it up? I dim the light, I feel the darkness set in. Oh, what a grave mistake that was. That's where the danger begins. You see, it all first starts off with cars, clothes, pretty women. The next stage filled with guns, money, and treacherous living. Lord, please save me now before I start sinning. Forget the clothes and dough. It grows old, Father, I need a vision. I'm holding on in this crazy life, you know it. And all the pain that came through rains, I'll probably never show it. I'll just write it on this paper and fold it and close it. But I need a second chance, so when it comes, Father, don't let me blow it.
Wow. Wow. I love it. How long have you been writing poetry?
Probably since high school. I graduated. I was in high school since about 2012. So, yeah, my Nana was heavily into poetry, and so I just kind of picked it up from her.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Do you read a lot of poetry?
I don't as much now, but I used to. Yep.
Please keep writing. We need your voice. We need all the voices. And you know, Cody was here yesterday, so he know what I said. If you're under 30, and don't lie, can y'all stand up for a second if you're able to? If you're under 30, I'm standing up, so I'm under 32. No. Psych. Cody's a genius, but all y'all juniors, can y'all just repeat after me? I want them to hear it all the way in Brooklyn, New York, where I'm from.
I
No, nice and loud. I am a genius. Genius. Because you all are. And Cody, my advice to you is simple. Keep writing, keep writing, keep writing. And to all of y'all, use your voices, use your voices, use your voices. Again, let's not forget, Dr. King was 26 when he led the Montgomery bus boycott. He died at 39. He didn't even make it to 40, y'all. And when you really study the civil rights movement, especially watch Eyes on the Prize, you know, one of the most important parts of it is when you see in 1964, actually from the Midwest, this part of the country, young people, black and white young people were actually trained, college students, high school students, and they were sent into places in the South. It's called Mississippi Freedom Summer, y'all. Mississippi Freedom Summer. This stuff is documented. Young people have always been at the front of changing the world. Y'all with me? Always have been that. You know, you don't get the summer of 20. Remember the summer of 2020 after George Floyd and Breonna Taylor? Yeah, it was a lot of people out there. It was multi-generational, but what really struck me was all the young people of different backgrounds out there. You know, but I also want to say, y'all, there are some of us elders, older folks, who do love y'all and do respect y'all. I'm one of them, because I remember when I was a young person coming up and some older folks would dish younger people. Don't stay away from those kind of older people. I'm just keeping it 100 with y'all. I can say it now. I'm in my 50s. I don't care. But what I'm saying is, we need y'all, but y'all need us as well. Let's have conversations with each other. You know what I'm saying? That's important. But Cody, keep writing. Please read poetry. Please read as much poetry as you can. Like I love poetry, and poetry literally has saved my life. And if y'all not writers, if you got a journal, a diary, just write stuff down. We have social media. You have your notes in your cell phones. We didn't have this stuff when I was coming up, right, y'all? Y'all can sit down. Y'all can sit down. But that's my advice to you. And then the word metaphor, 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 metaphor. As you keep writing poetry, don't just tell us, but also show us. Some of the older folks know what I'm talking about. When we were in school as kids, roses are red. That's called a metaphor. Those don't tell me, but show me. Right? Does that make sense? Why that look? Because we're in the same. No, we're not old. We just have memories of no cell phones. Yeah, and we have memories of vinyl records, and cassette tapes, and CDs, 8-track tapes, and we have memories of. Y'all know what I'm talking about. When I was a kid, there was Star Trek and the Honeymooners, and then the TV just went blank. Remember that? And then you wake up in the morning, there's the national anthem, and then there's the cartoons. Rocky and Bullwinkle was mine. Or Tom and Jerry, right? The younger people are like, what? But so I'm saying, but the point is though, yeah, we have those experiences as older people, but guess what? Just like there's things we can teach you if we were born in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, there's things they can teach us being born in the 90s or 2000s. But the humility comes in, are we willing to listen? Right? Listen. Anyone else, especially younger folks who want to say something? Okay, back here. Hey.
Hi.
What's your name?
Jalen.
Hey, Jalen.
I'm from Michigan City High School.
Word. All right.
And my question is, like, can you give any of us high school students advice on using our voice to stand up and speak, not only for, like, diversity, but just for ourselves in general, like standing in front of a crowd or older people and not being afraid to say or speak how we feel?
I have first of all, round of applause to Jalen. I want to do, how about we do it right now? If anyone's under 30, 25, you want something to say, come up here and just say it. Whatever's on your heart. How about that? Right now. Why can't we do it right now? Can we do it, Ms. Thompson, right now?
I think we can do it right now.
We can do it right now. What's on your heart, Jay? You want to come up here and say it? You want to stay? Are you more comfortable right there? Can we pass you the mic back? You can say what's on your heart. I'm serious. That's your cousin?
That's your cousin.
Hey, cousin, come on now. We ain't gonna invite you to the family reunion if you don't say nothing else. No pressure. No pressure, though. Know what? Because most importantly, what can we do to make sure that young people's voices are heard? Can we say safe space?
Safe space.
Can we say no judgment?
No judgment.
That's how I operate. When I go to high schools, grammar schools, I'm like, first of all, as long as I spoke up there, I wouldn't even do that to y'all. You know what I mean? I wouldn't do that. I'm like, hey, what's on your mind? Let's make this interactive from the start. I think, too, a lot of times we forget, again, that we were teenagers, 20-somethings, you know? And guess what, y'all? Because we do have things like social media and cell phones in these times, even me, and older adults admit it, I'm admitting it, even I can't listen to stuff as long as I used to. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? And so I think let's make it interactive. You know, I think, it was asked yesterday, just let young people speak and listen. How hard is that? Even in corporate spaces, you know what I mean? Every space, like, listen to younger people's voices. You know, I hate it when people say, well, you know, I'm an older person, da da da. I'm like, you know, I know you're an older person. I know I'm an older person, you know, but like, yo, we don't get new energy if we don't listen to younger voices. It's really basic, you know? And stop the dissing of people, their hair, their tattoos, their piercings, the way they dress, their music. That's corny, that's corny, that's corny. That's called ageism. That's called ageism. That's called ageism. Just like I don't want to be dissed as an older person, like I have nothing to contribute. Why should I diss a younger person like they have nothing to contribute? It goes both ways, y'all. So it ain't just racism, sexism, but ageism is real. Madam Mayor, please.
And what I'll say too to the young people, and they know, because I don't even know his name, and I call him Bruiser every time I see him. He's an athlete, but I try to speak life into people. And I think we don't do that enough with our young people. And so when I see them doing good or even seeing them doing bad, I just tell them I have an expectation that the next time I see them, that I expect bigger things from them. You know, if you got a D this time, let's work on that C, and let's get to that B, and let's get to that A. And I think we don't do that enough. Words are powerful, and I say that all the time. So I always tell people, breathe life into our children, our young adults, because we have to have higher expectations of them. I said mediocrity is not something that we should be accepting, and we do that so much. We expect little, and then we wonder why we get little. And I said that as adults and as people in the room that can make decisions, we have to make sure they understand that. And they can feel your negative energy. You know, they can feel negative energy. And they may have all that negative energy at home, but us, it's our responsibility for all of us in the room that are standing up and doing these things to breathe life into them and to hopefully outweigh what they're dealing with at home. And, you know, I speak publicly a lot. You know, my dad was a drug addict, but he was our biggest cheerleader for everything that we did. And it's one of those things that I don't think we do enough of as a community. And we used to do it a lot. You had your churches, and I said it's everybody's responsibility for these young people to know that, hey, you can make it regardless of the situations that are going on at home. And that's what I want to speak to all of you. You may not come up to the front and speak, but when you are with your peer group, you are leaders in your peer group. And if you see something, you need to say something and make sure that, hey, I'm not down with that. I'm not down with that. You can do you, but I'm not for that. But I'm still going to support you and love you if you need me. And I think we need to do more of that. And that's what Dr. Martin Luther King represents.
Thank you.
Okay. I have Caitlin. She does want to come up, and she does want to speak from her heart. So
Come on.
Caitlin.
And
Come with me, girl.
Is it Caitlin?
Yeah.
And while you're coming up, can I say one quick thing? Madam Mayor, I agree 150% everything you just said. If I can add one thing from the older adult perspective here, for me personally, I can't speak for anyone else, but I also think that young people know when you're lying.
Oh, yeah.
Young people know when you're running game. Because I knew it when I was a younger person. Be honest. Like what you just said about your dad, that's honesty. You know what I mean? My father wasn't there. Me and my mother had a troubled relationship. I ain't gonna lie about it. It's real. I love my moms, but like, yo, it caused some trauma in my life, which is why I've gone through X, Y, and Z. Enough of lying to ourselves and lying to each other, and let's not have expectations of younger people. We don't even conduct ourselves in a certain kind of way. You know what I mean? We're gonna put it on them, but like, are you following what you're supposed to be doing? Diddy, Harvey Weinstein, we're going to go through names of people who don't, you know, I'm talking about famous folks, but it can be a whole bunch of us, elected officials, preachers who act a certain kind of way, and then say, well, y'all young people need to do something different. You ready? You got this?
I just want to say, like, oh, okay, you got it. I just want to say, like, definitely for, like, the younger generation these days, like she said, like, older people definitely guiding us and helping us, giving us that safe space for the younger generation is definitely needed. I think creating more communities at school, creating more safe spaces for different kind of people, more than just sports and, you know, and stuff like that. Just that's something that we definitely need, and I think that's really important. And I think to answer her question, I think in order to start something like that so young, especially like if you're having the difficulties like doing it alone, try to find people who have the same mindset as you and create something and then it get bigger as you, grow with your voice. So, yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Excellent. Wait, before you go away, Caitlin, come on back for a second. So, how old are you?
I'm 16.
And what do you want? Do you know what you want to do with your life?
I'm thinking about being a lawyer.
Okay.
What kind of lawyer?
Like for businesses and stuff.
Do you like to read?
I love to read.
Did you learn anything about Dr. King today that you I need to know more?
Definitely, yeah.
What?
I guess like exposing myself to different opinions, especially because, I think I need to work on being more open-minded instead of to different opinions from me, because that won't help me learn at all. So I guess.
Do you think history is important?
Definitely, yeah. I guess it helps us look back on it so we can learn how to grow more as in present times. So it can.
That's a great definition. Look back on it so we can grow more in present time. History. Thank you. Excellent. Anyone else?
All right, Jim.
We'll mix it up. It'll be cross-generational. Even though you're a teenager, I know that.
Oh, wow. No, I'm almost 50.
That's a blessing.
I'm almost 50. So first I want to say thank you. This is a wonderful experience. And in the vein of being transparent, I want to ask a question as a professional who works in higher ed, getting tips from you on how to continue to walk in the humanity you talked about. So I've been different my whole life, obviously. I was raised in a home where we didn't see color. We were raised to love people for people. And my parents predominantly had more friends that were like family who were not black. And so with that growing up, that's how I function as a person. I've been labeled as not black enough. I've been labeled a lot of things. And I want to share that last night I had the opportunity to go to South Central High School. And I'm going to be transparent. Driving at night in rural Indiana by myself as a black woman kind of put some thoughts in my mind. And I appreciate my coworker for going with me, being human. Amy Hackstead came with me. And so my approach to dealing with families who are not of my background is being a person. That's how I've always functioned. And walking in love. They're frustrated. They don't understand the financial aid process. And so that approach has gotten me good results. And so that is my question, how to continue on that process. And I just got some emails. Very great feedback. They loved it. They were thankful. They were helpful. And as an employee of Purdue University Northwest, my heart is to serve the community that we are housed around. So in the heart of service and continuing to look at people not from their backgrounds, but just as a person who might be frustrated or who desires to better themselves. What are some things that you can offer professionals who work in this particular industry to help them walk in that space and be that for the community?
Wow, thank you. I keep thinking about Audre Lorde. If y'all don't know the name Audre Lorde, please look up Audre Lorde, one of our late great writers, thinkers, poets like myself. I'm going to paraphrase her quote. Maybe one of y'all can find it on your phones real quick. She talked about we should honor who we are while also celebrating our differences, our diversity. It's not an either or. And I think one thing we tend to do in our country is this either or stuff. You know what I mean? Why can't we be all these things? I celebrate who I am, but also celebrate the diversity. And so I work with young people and people, period, of all different backgrounds. And I actually do see color and gender identity and ability or being differently able and all these different things. Or people sometimes tell me this is who I am. If I don't know, I'll ask, And I think that's important because I think we unwittingly are erasing people or parts of people when we say we don't see certain things. You know, I wouldn't want someone to, I mean, clearly I'm an African American person and I'm proud of who I am, but I'm also a human being. I'm proud of that as well. But I'm not going to erase my African Americanness, which means I love the South Side of Chicago. I love Gary, Indiana, its history, which means I love soul food restaurants. I love going to the barbershop and just kicking it. I love, you know, certain things that are very, like when y'all we started the program, I said, please get up like we do in the traditional black church. You know, now have I been told I'm not black enough in my lifetime or I speak a certain kind of way? Yup. And have I been told you're too black, son? Can you dial it back a little bit? Yup. You know what I'm saying? And if I can bring it back to Eve Ensler, V, my friend who created the Vagina Monologues, I know who I am. And when you know who you are, it doesn't matter what other people say about you, as long as you know. And as long as you're practicing what my wife keeps talking about, which is love and kindness toward people, you know, man, listen, you know, I've been in schools where it was only majority black and Latinx students, for example. I've been in spaces where it was indigenous students. I've been in spaces where it was mostly or all white students. I give them the same love equally. You know what I mean? You know, but I also understand because I believe that we are like, how do I put it? And Dr. Castone knows I'm talking about. There's a part of this is psychology. You do have to take into account where people come from and how that will dictate how they are moving in the world. And so if someone's from rural Indiana and they happen to be a white person, it's more than likely if they're a poor white person, they've been told that there's certain things in their life they can't even do because of their background. You know what I mean? Just like someone who might be from Brooklyn, where I'm from, in the hood in Brooklyn. But the difference is they're white, I'm black, and to this sister's point, there's still something called white privilege. Just like if a white male, a poor white male and a poor black male, a white male and a poor black woman are in the same community, guess what? Because of his gender privilege and his racial privilege, there'll be some places he may be able to go, so I got to take all that into account. So I think that if we're working with people as leaders, which is what you are, we have a responsibility to be psychologists, sociologists. We gotta, you know, we gotta know technology, we gotta know pop culture, we gotta know all these different spaces and kind of tie it all together. What Kimberly Crenshaw, as I said yesterday, calls intersectionality. You know, when I think about it now, you know, I used to think that I was cursed when I was growing up because we moved to a lot of neighborhoods because we were poor, and I went to a lot of schools. I went to 4 grammar schools, y'all, and 3 high schools. It was crazy. But you know what it actually taught me? How to relate to different types of people, which I realize is actually a skill set to have, while still being rooted and proud of my blackness. And who said that blackness is monolithic? You know what you just said? My wife and I have exchanged the same notes with each other. You know what I mean? People have said we weren't something enough of something. That's their issue because their own insanity or self-hatred or confusion. But I know who I am. I'd rather die. I'm an African person. I'd rather die for my people. But I also rather die for folks who ain't quote unquote black. Because if anyone is suffering, back to Dr. King, that's my concern as well. You know what I mean? And I think you just have to think about, like, you know, part of being an educator, and I think y'all are the most important people we have in this country other than parents and people in our communities who may be leaders like our mayor, got to constantly learn. Just like we expect students, this is why I'm like, we can't just put on students. Educators, adults, we can't stop growing and learning just because we're adults. You know, because as you know, as the mayor was talking, I kept thinking about, yep, they're teenagers, but I know people who are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old who could sure use a re-education. Am I lying? I'm like, yo, human being, it is not 1970. You might want to rethink what you just said. You know what I'm saying? I love my mama. But my mama, if I'm honest about it, my wife knows what I'm about to say. She's like the black female Archie Bunker up in this piece sometimes. I'm like, what are you saying, Ma? What are you saying in 2024? Am I right? She's like, yes, dear. So I think, but for those of us who are on the front lines doing this work, you know, also asking ourselves, am I doing everything I can to keep evolving? And I think part of it actually comes from younger people. A lot of it comes from younger people. And just like, you know, and being willing to change. Like one of the things that Uber driver said last night, I don't know about this they, them stuff. I'm like, well, okay, I hear you, but some people do want pronouns that say he and she. They prefer to say they and them. But he's saying, I'm not going to change. They're the problem. And we have to be willing to evolve, you know, because it is offensive if you say to someone says, I'm not she or he, I'm they, and you continue to say he or she, you actually are practicing a form of phobia. You know what I mean? You know, violence. Yeah. So I think that, you know, are we willing to find out new ways to reach folks, if that makes sense? Yeah. Where's South Central High School at? It's in the cornfields? Can we go now? I want to go there. I like cornfields. Okay, I do.
Okay, we have one more question, then we're going to lead into our breakout discussion. So,
In red, an elder in red.
oh, I know.
Can we do both? Can we do both?
He's leading the breakout session, so well,
So here's, you got the next question then.
oh no, hold on. Ladies first.
Thank you. Again, I enjoyed you, and thank you for. What is this?
Oh.
He loves the red. Oh man.
Is that your favorite color?
No, thank you. It's sort of a, I don't know how to say it. No, it's like something that I started a couple of years ago, wearing red.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, the Northwest Times did an article on me about the work that I do in the community. And a lot of times people will see me with my coat on, my hat, and they'll come to me and ask me questions about some of the things that I do. But anyway.
I love that. What's your name?
Faye Moore.
Miss Moore.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
So I just want to make an announcement that this continues. The Dr. Martin Luther King celebration continues on Monday. And it's going to be at the MBA of the Northwest Indiana is hosting and give you an invitation to come to the community, to come to a special celebration. Can't read with my glasses in this small print. The event is going to be at the Michigan City Salvation Army, located at 1201 Franklin Street, Michigan City, from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. The celebration of Dr. King is open to all and will be filled with engaging activities and meaningful conversation. Also, the keynote speaker is going to be LaPorte County Magistrate Erica Stallworth, and she will share her deep knowledge and inspiring works to shed light on the importance of Dr. King's legacy and his relevance to the world. Magistrate Stallworth is the first African American judicial officer in the 190-year history of LaPorte County, Indiana. Magistrate Stallworth holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and from Spelman College, a master's degree in social work from the University of Michigan, and a Jewish and a Jewish doctorate degree from Loyola University in Chicago School of Law. So again, it's Monday at the Salvation Army in Michigan City from 10 to 1, and then there'll be activities to go out to help in the community.
Excellent, thank you.
Go ahead. He got the mic.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. Real quick, Kevin, I wanted to take a moment of personal privilege to say that you are in alignment with good company at PNW, because on this very stage, we've witnessed the great Tim Wise speak truth to power here, and we also witnessed Yusuf Salam of the Exonerated Five of New York City speak truth to power right here on this stage at PNW. And I really think it speaks to the institutional commitment of this university to bring forth people to speak truth to power and to continue the courageous conversation and to engage the community in such conversations. I've traveled up throughout the Northwest Indiana conveyor belt here, and very seldom do you have institutions that are willing to take advantage and move a conversation forward. So I want to say congratulations in being in that long line of people. It speaks directly to the institutional commitment of excellence. Secondly, just to paint the picture a little bit, I'm a product of what's known as Generation X. We're a small generational cohort trapped in between the baby boomers and the millennials, and arguably will be taking over the economy and the job market within the next couple of years as the baby boomers prepare for retirement. But the question I want to ask, Kevin, is the fact that in my formal education throughout my journeys as a first-generation college student, when I was pretty much in the cohort group of these students that are here, my sophomore year in high school, we were forced to read a book by Steinbeck called Of Mice and Men. By chapter 4 of that book, I was fed up with the N-word used in the book. But I got so frustrated that I argued with the teacher and just threw the book across the room, and that led to a phone call to the security office, in which they come into the classroom, and two of them dragged me from the desk to the principal's office, where I was suspended for 5 days out of school for insubordination. They said that I was I threatened the learning environment, whatever. But when I got home, Mr. Rainey, that I had to deal with his discipline, agreed with my frustration, but did not agree with the way I handled the situation. So I had to handle his wrath and his discipline. However, during that 5-day period out of school, I went to the local library, and at that point in time, they had a room where you could put records and CDs on and listen through a headphone. And I listened to a guy by the name of Gil Scott Heron out of New York City. I also listened to a group called Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, all of which pumped a level of consciousness, social commentary into my overall consciousness, which I like to believe all of which are architects of hip-hop. And pretty much anyone that's part of Generation X highly inundated with the hip-hop component. But being influenced by those two artists, that group and then artists, Gil Scott Heron and Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, can you speak to the notion of how hip-hop has helped raise the level of consciousness in a positive light to a lot of people?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Y'all ask profound questions up in here. Peace, Brother Cody. Thank you again. So let's stay in touch. You got my math. Thank you, sir. Can I start with Generation X? How many of y'all are Generation X out here? Just show of hands. There's a lot of us. Yeah. So, younger people, for a second, who are under 25 and 30, there was a time when we were in vogue. It was called the 1990s, way back in the day. And it was like a big deal for us as a generation because we had people like Kurt Cobain and Nirvana and, you know, obviously hip-hop artists, and we grew up with MTV and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I guess you could say we grew up with hip-hop, with Madonna, Michael Jackson, Prince, all these different influences. And then it was almost like it was over. People forgot about us, but we're still here and we're in different positions. It's really interesting meeting Gen Xers around the country. So I'm a proud Gen Xer. I just want to say that real quick. And then my little TV show, The Real World, was considered part of Gen X, and then obviously shows like Friends, rest in peace. Who's our brother just died from Friends? That was very sad, but he was definitely, Friends was a big part of that. And so, you know, when you look at people now that are out there, you know, who are in their late 40s, early 50s, those are all Generation X people, you know, who are doing things, and it's really something to behold. Hip hop, you know, as I said, was created by working class people, poor people, and it was a part of my education as well. And it's important for us to say hip-hop generations, because you literally have people who are, like our niece is 11 years old. She knows hip-hop, you know. You have folks who are past 60 who have been touched by hip-hop. I mean, Kool Herc, who's considered one of the founding fathers of hip-hop, is now practically 70 years old. He threw the first party in 1973, 50 years ago. That's why we celebrate hip-hop at 50. He and his sister produced the first, was arguably the first party for hip-hop in New York City, and he just got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He's about to get a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. And so at his core, you know, yep, the foundation, Gil Scott Heron, The Last Poets, Nikki Giovanni, Maya Angelou, Mary Baraka, Haki Mahabuti from Chicago, you know, Black Poetry, Gwendolyn Brooks, all of that. Black girls doing double Dutch rhyming, Muhammad Ali speaking in rhymes, that's all hip hop, you know. It's us, it's black culture, it's African culture, it's the griots and traditional African societies, the storytellers, the drum is the beat, the drum is the beat, you know what I mean? So all of that is hip hop, and then there's 4 basic elements of hip hop. The DJ, the MC on the microphone, the DJ on the turntables, or Serato as we have now, a lot of people using their laptops, the graffiti, tagging on walls, and then dancing. We love to dance, you know. It was a big part of my education. I mean, I can't even front on how much hip-hop shaped me. I grew up literally popping, locking, break dancing. I was a house music head dancing. My nickname is Keep01. That was my graffiti tag when I was coming up as a youth. So it's deep in my bones. It's kind of like you meet people who are jazz heads or classic rock heads. You know, people who are like, I love Led Zeppelin, I love, you know, the Beatles, whatever. That's what hip hop is for me, you know. And it's a culture. It's a culture. It's a culture. And I want us to think about this one thing. Let's make a distinction between hip hop culture, the DJ, MC, graffiti writing, and dance element, and then what I call hip hop, the industry, which is the stuff you hear on the radio where they only put the rappers out there. And the difference, what has happened, and this is why I say we got to be very careful of dissing the music of young people. It's not the young people people who've done this to hip hop, the industry across the board. Think about it. Has there been a Kurt Cobain since Kurt Cobain? Not really. The whole music industry has been kind of watered down a lot. So a lot of the music is just kind of quick and fast. It could be rock, it could be jazz, it could be hip hop, all of it. But I also think it's important to understand that, you know, these stations only play the same 12, 13 songs. Back to why traveling is important. Everywhere I go, it could be New York, Chicago, LA. I'm like, why do they play the same 12, 13 songs? You don't hear nothing else. You know what I'm saying? As if nothing else exists. Every now and then someone like a Kendrick Lamar will break through who has his voice. Kendrick has rapped about a whole range of stuff. But a lot of stuff we hear is the same stuff over and over again. And so I think that we just need to understand that I believe a lot of it's intentional. Back to what we were saying yesterday, where it's like, let's just dumb down. Like our culture as Americans has been dumbed down. Who was I referencing earlier? Bob Dylan, right? Could a Bob Dylan even exist now? You know, could a Prince exist now? Could Nina Simone even exist now? Prince could exist, but you argue yes. And you got on purple, so I'm going to shut up. But I think the point I'm getting at, he was way ahead of his time. But what I'm getting at is that I think that we have to demand more. But every now and then you get an artist, and I got to shout out Beyonce, since both my wife and Brittany love Beyonce. And I love Beyonce, but I didn't really get it until me and my wife went to the concert last summer. I was like, yo, this is profound. But I also remember that Beyonce for a while had been mentored by Prince, and spent time with Prince, and was constantly evolving. And so I think, you know, I love hip hop. I'm a hip hop head for life. But just in terms of art in general, I just want to see art that is constantly pushing the envelope. I want to see that. Regardless of what you think about the Barbie movie, I think what Greta Gerwig did with the film was very creative. You know, when I saw Killers of the Flower Moon, I may have criticism of some of the things with Killers of the Flower Moon, but I'm like, yo, Scorsese ultimately did his thing with this film. You know what I mean? And so I look for art, whether it's music, film, TV, etc., that challenges us, helps us to be deeper thinkers, critical thinkers. Does that make sense, y'all? Like, what's a TV show that y'all love right now that's screaming that you think is like profound? Just say it, just yell it out.
Irrational.
Irrational. So we gotta look for that. Have you heard of it? What network is it on?
It's on NBC.
Okay, it's on regular TV. I've heard of that. It's on Peacock. Okay. They need a better name than Peacock, don't you think? But
He's a psychologist who knows or studies why people do irrational things.
I want to watch that.
Solves crimes.
I want to watch that. Thank you. And so I want art like that. And I feel like when I first heard, he's talking about Grandmaster Flash and Furious 5, the message. Broken glass everywhere. People on the station like they just don't care. It blew my mind. I'd never heard anything like that. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what I'm looking for, like art. You know, when I first, you know, think about when Black Lives Matter exploded this summer 2020, the one song I kept hearing at most of the protests was Kendrick Lamar's "We Gon' Be Alright." That says something. When you make something, a piece of art that stands the test of time like that, you're like, yo, this is deep. Why are we still talking about Blowing in the Wind by Bob Dylan 60 years later? Change Is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke 60 years later. You know, we're about to celebrate the Beatles coming to America next month, 60 years later. Their songs are all over the world. Bob Marley is all over the world. We have learned as we've traveled, Tupac is all over the world. We're like, yo, Pac is everywhere. This shirt's everywhere. And so are you creating art that not only, it doesn't have to all be political. You know, so I'm one of those kids, like, I party to some of the most ratchet music ever, because I'm like, yup, that beat is hot, yo. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, as we listen to Beyonce's album, y'all should listen to Renaissance. As she's making this great dance music, she's dropping music. You know, we all know who Uncle Johnny is now. And who can't relate to "You're Not Gonna Break My Soul"? You know, so even if it's just a phrase, we just need art that's going to do that, because I feel like the art is reflecting our political times, which is a lot of confusion, and we need art that's going to take us somewhere else. Does that make sense, y'all? You know, that's what I think about. That's what I think about. Yeah. We good?
Oh, we're great. Let's give a round of applause for Kevin, though. That's amazing. So I know that we ran over just a little bit, so now we're going to break out into our community-based discussions. I know Michigan City, the students have to leave, so Kevin, they would love to get a picture with you as well. So Macy O'Rainey is going to lead one discussion here in this room, and then we have Cedric Washington. Cedric, can you raise your hand right here? He's going to be in the room behind this wall barrier leading our second discussion. So if we can break out into those two, we will lead from there.
Good job.